Um,
If memory serves, I think it was the stat that surprised me was the 90% uptick year over year of cloud-based attacks.
that will, and that was one, you nailed it, Ryan. But
primary from Chinese adversaries.
Well, right, and the thing that what's really cool is you'll see from the efficacy of the SASI report, so much of what Jim and Chip are picking up on the team at SaaS Alerts are really in line with what CrowdStrike is doing, or I should say CrowdStrike's kind of in line with what SaaS Alerts is doing. Does that sound better, Jim?
There you go, Andrew. I like that take a lot better. There you go.
But this, I mean, this is just so, we did the creds and the credential thing, Chip. And this is what I wanted to show you. But look at the growth in access brokers. I mean, it's, and the specificity of, Gary, I think you were at Harlem, you were at SchnizFest where we showed the roles of threat actors. And the different areas. And it is, wow, 112% increase. I mean, the specificity is getting pretty daunting. And then they do talk about, as Ryan was saying, the increase in threat actors. Just focus on the cloud, because so many of the things I re-listened to Bo Bullock, that webinar we did with Bo again, and just things like conditional access, Chip, how it breaks, quote unquote, so much of the goodness of Microsoft security, things like that. It's just really interesting.
Yeah, and it kind of, it makes sense that there's more and more attacks on, SaaS applications and cloud, because realistically, how many people are still using on-prem stuff, right? Like as people shift their usage to SaaS and cloud, then obviously on-prem isn't nearly as attractive to go after, because the TAM, right, the total addressable market, is that much smaller.
Well, and to that point, the last thing, and we'll get going here, Jim, is if you think about it, let's go back to what we just saw with access brokers. So if I can get credentials, and we know the majority of people have, for example, have Office 365, we know the majority of people are reusing credentials. So if I can compromise an O365 account, then now I can do spear phishing. Now I can do all the nefarious things, and hence why is BEC going through the roof as well. So it's kind of, I don't know, Chip, when I kind of chain that logic together, does that make sense to you?
It does. I mean, look, it's the beachhead, and the Active Directory on-prem used to be the prize, and it's not anymore. It's the directory service, whatever you're using, whether it's Google Workspace or 365 as your directory service, that's the prize at this point. And it's sort of predictable. I mean, Microsoft 10 years ago, made a decision, about strategic business decision, that they were going to bring everyone into the cloud in terms of their directory service. And they've effectively accomplished that. I mean, it's still some outliers, but that's what they've effectively done. So that is now the holy grail. That's your beachhead. That's where you start.
Yeah. Really, really interesting stuff.
And Andrew, I actually had an interesting conversation yesterday with a pretty large MSSP, and we're in the process right now with them. And I said, ultimately, this is the calculus you have to do. Do you think that SaaS applications are a fad? And he's like, no, they're around for a while. I'm like, okay. And so we've established that. Are you going to spend the requisite resources to build SaaS security monitoring yourself? He said, absolutely not. I said, well, then do you feel that you need to be in the space? He said, yes, absolutely. So I said, so what's holding you up? He said, when you put it like that, we'll sign the agreement by the end of the month.
Did you say, well, why not today?
Well, CTO's got to get involved and all that stuff. You know how it goes, Andrew.
I'm kidding.
Hey, you know what? But
You're on a
wish-
roll, so I figured let's just keep.
hey, you know what? You should have been on the call with me.
All right. All right. So real quick, Chip, Liran, anything product related you guys want to talk about real quick?
I think so. I think Liran has a couple items.
Okay, perfect.
Here.
And by the way, I'm Andrew Morgan. Thanks for all joining today. It's awesome, Jim. We hit a new record. We're at 50.
We're at 50. I just noticed that
50.
myself.
And yeah. And I'm been given the really nice honor from Jim and Chip and team to moderate, and we've grown a great community here. You guys are all awesome and just fantastic participation. We do keep notes of who participates, and then we call you out if you don't. No, we don't do that. We don't. So
Andrew, we've officially doubled. We've officially doubled it, by the way.
Yeah. So from a agenda perspective, what we do, just so you guys know the cadence, we start off with the product team. We see if there's updates or anything that you all, this isn't one way. This is bi-directional. Anything you guys want to chat about, Jim, Chip and Liran really want to hear your feedback. We've gotten some real incredible I think lift in terms of how they're going about product. And so it's instrumental in terms of you guys giving feedback. And then I don't know if Ryan's on with us, but we always check into customer success if there's anything that, is raising his eyebrows or things he wants to point out. And then today we're going to do a quick, I shouldn't say quick, but we're going to have George Cappas, one of our MSPs on, who how he's using SaaS Alerts and how they're going to market with it. And then we'll go into the SASI report and see how much we can get through, Jim. So
that'd be great.
Yeah. So with that, Liran, the floor is yours.
Hey guys. So as far as new features to go over, we have implemented the 15-minute timeout and are currently working on changing that 15-minute timeout to 1 hour in reports based on feedback from this meeting from last week. We also have a new landing page. When you get to manage.sasalerts.com, you now get to choose whether you want to log in or you want to get sign up. We had some confusion that was happening there. We've also finished the update on the map for when you first log in. There's a map that shows you information. Previously, that map, phase one was to update the style to make it a little bit more up to date. Second phase of that is to make that map into a cluster map, which means, well, you can log in and you can see it. It's fairly straightforward. I can also show it.
Yeah, why don't you show everybody, Liran?
Yeah. Problem is I have like 70 tabs open and I can't find anything. So I have it now.
Well, Liran's queuing that up. The main purpose here, guys, was to make this map a lot more data dense, so that you would drill down and have a far higher limit on the number of events that we would present in the map itself. There you go.
Yeah. So
kick it up to full screen.
What's that? Oh, full screen. So to Chip's point, right, these maps, right, are inherently designed to show you the coffee shops in the neighborhood. They're not intended to show you 2 million data points. So we've kind of had to restyle the way that the entire map operates, right? And so the way that the map operates today is that it's clustered in this sort of manner, where if you have a bunch of things happening, you kind of just continuously drill in and see what is going on here. And oh, look, Chip is doing stuff in New York. So that's just keeping up with the times and changing the application as needed in order to show more information. This map previously had a limit of, I think, 2,500 data points, is currently at 10,000. And we are working towards getting that up to 1 million data points on the map. We've also talked before about the Office 365 shell event and how that type of event has been used in the past to compromise various accounts. So we've done some data analysis and have looked at 2,500 random accounts in order to understand the relationship in terms of when one should see a standard login followed by an Office 365 shell login in order to give you a new event that is a suspicious shell login. In other words, when you use Microsoft, you shouldn't just be able to open Outlook cold, right? You typically need to log into the Microsoft network first, then you get into Outlook. So that is another thing that we are actively working on. And we're also working on, I was just in a meeting where I was told this may not be the right term for this, but an impossible travel alert. So if a user logs in from New York City and then 3 minutes later not logs in from Knoxville, Tennessee, is that okay? Is that not okay? So we're also working on that in the background as well.
Chip, and when they see the red data sets on the map, I'm sorry, or Liran, when they see the red data sets, is the intention here that they would drill from those, or how might you use this as an analyst real quick versus your tickets generated in ConnectWise or some other types of reporting?
Yeah, the colorization, Andrew, is definitely there to indicate nominal events are green. Those are the low-level events. Red is obviously a critical alert, and orange, which there is one on there, corresponds to a medium-level alert. So, visually, it's there to allow an analyst to just pick up really quickly what's going on in their environment. I mean, I would think for most of our partners, this map is mostly green. We see more red on our own test partner because we do a lot of intentional creation of alerts that ordinarily wouldn't be seen by most partners most of the time. But it still is instructive of the last known event and location of a user. Oddly enough, when Liran drilled into Manhattan and happened to just select, my latest activity recorded on the map, that's a great illustration of the challenge we all have with geolocation. Not everyone on this call would know this, but for those of you who do, I am not in Manhattan, nor am I ever in Manhattan. But Starlink, which is my provider, records that IP address as Manhattan, and there's really no way to change that with them. So, this is one of the debates that we have ongoing with our own engineering team, and also discussions with many partners about providing more granularity to the geolocation information. Because, if we allowed whitelisting down to cities, let's say, we could be a lot more effective with a lot of events, but we'd also potentially introduce a lot more noise. So we're really trying to work out, what's the best way to go about providing more granularity there. So I wouldn't have brought that up other than Liran having to just by pure chance focus on me. And I promise you guys that was not a setup. But that's one of those issues that I know we've talked about in the past on this call, and we have ongoing conversations with partners on.
And just to add to that, Andrew, to your question, how would we use this? How would partners use this data? The risk report has a map that is very similar to this. And one of the things that the risk report shows are login attempts or login failures. So a lot of businesses, their cybersecurity position is, I haven't been hacked, therefore I am secure.
Sure.
Okay. Let me pull up the risk report and let's look at the actual data and see what that looks like. Right. Hopefully that map lights up like a Christmas tree for you from China and some of like Africa and various places in the world, right? Where if your business is based in Indiana, they're probably like, well, what are all these red maps in China? Like, what are all these red dots in China? Like, what is this? And as an MSP, you get to tell them like, look, even though like you don't think you're a target, you guys are actually the prime target because you have decent revenue and you're small enough not to have a very serious and robust situation, right? So like if I was a bad actor, I'd want to compromise you, ask her for $500,000, settle for 50K, call it a day and move on to my next target. So you can show them this type of map and say, do you have anyone in Spain? Okay, well, somebody in Spain is trying to get into your stuff. And if you don't have a secured environment, they may get in eventually.
It's interesting you say that. We had David McKinnon on from Enable, the CISO, who did a great presentation at Write a Boom. We had him on the Cyber Call Monday, and he talks about this shift left mentality. You know, we always look at once the event happens, but he talks about how really a compromise, if you look back at the anatomy of it, is basically a bunch of little things that add up over time. And so to this point, you know, just because they're not in right now, that activity, right, is certainly where there's smoke, there's fire potentially. So it's really a really good point you're mentioning.
Hey, Andrew, I also want to highlight the you know, in the comments, the rule that Joshua built out in Respond, right? That his own basically impossible travel rule. And we now have well over 300 of our partners, 300 or 700 partners using Respond and setting up rules with us. And it's just, it makes me excited every week in our senior leadership team meeting, because we track how many people are in Respond and using it. And it's exactly why we did it. So it's just, I want to point out, you know, that awesome rule that he created.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great. And Jimmy, you guys did some competitions last year, right? Or something around, and Ben won, and Ben's always a great contributor. Maybe you guys do something around that again this year.
We are definitely going to do that again this year. So we've got a big product launch coming out for this community for our partners on April 19th. There'll be more information on that. And then in the coming days. And then we're announcing it to the broader community the following week in Las Vegas at Connect IT Global. But yeah, Ben, you know, Ben's loaded now because he won so much money on that contest. And we plan on doing something like it again.
Awesome. And then maybe you do it in conjunction, since Connect is in Las Vegas, Jim, the award winner there, but they have to take all the winnings and do one roulette bet. So you get it, and then you got to bet it all right there. And then, you know, so.
I like that idea.
Okay.
I like it.
All right. George Cappas is with us. Thanks for joining, and we'll do a kind of a fireside chat with George, and then we'll get into the SASI report, which I'm really excited about. But George, really cool that you came on with us, and I've known you for a while now, and when Michelle told me, wow, you know what you guys are doing and have done, I was really excited. So can you just briefly tell everybody about yourself, your company, and then I'll ask you a few questions and look forward to hearing about it.
Yeah. Name's George Cappas, with Morgan Berger & Associates. Started out in IT in 1993 with a healthcare organization, bounced to school, started doing some break fix stuff on the side, and then ended up with Morgan Berger in 2006 as a partner. Morgan Berger is a larger telecom MSP, so we take care of phone systems. And then we're the smaller IT MSP. And, you know, I think they asked me to the call because I had a meeting with our sales rep, and they were going to show us kind of how to get people to purchase SaaS alerts, you know, as we just signed up. And I was kind of like, we only have one package, everyone gets everything. And I think that's why I'm here to talk about how we kind of got to that one package for everybody deal.
Yeah.
So, you know, for a long time, we had the good, better, best plan going on. And, you know, we were letting customers make decisions on their everything really. It was bad practice, looking back at it. And COVID hit, and we discovered the cyber call. And we were on the first cyber call, and it kind of woke us up like we're not doing enough for our customers. We were not a good MSP looking back at it. I mean, we provided good service, our customers were happy and this and that, but all the stuff going on in the world, I mean, our customers were pretty vulnerable. We were lucky that nobody got encrypted. So, COVID hits, we discover the cyber call, and I don't know Gary Pica, but he made a comment during one of the early calls, and it said that there's too many bad MSPs out there, but he didn't say bad. He said some swear words, which I'm not going to use on this call. And if you're one of those, shut down, go do something else for a living. So that hit home for me and our team. And we started learning a lot about, security and all kinds of different things from the cyber calls. We were on those calls religiously for, I think, over a year and a half. Now we can't get everyone because we're getting busier and busier, but they really changed the way we do business. So as we're starting to,
so you're saying Gary had a lot of finesse is what you're saying.
Gary's he's like a drill sergeant for MSPs, I think. I'd love to meet him sometime, but
be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, Gary's known.
I've known him for a very long time. I'm in one of his peer groups.
Yeah, Gary.
And yes, he is a drill sergeant, but he's really good at what he does.
He made a big impact on us, that's for sure. I can tell you that. So now we're starting to add these tools, the endpoint protection stuff that's, best in class, offsite backups, disaster recovery, all the stuff that we should have been doing all along, right? 2FA going on everywhere now, started quarterly business reviews, but we didn't change our pricing structure yet. Like, we're still trying to get comfortable with all this, trying to figure out how we monitor it, trying to figure out how we do a lot of things, but we're in a mode where we're like, just protect the customer, right? We had several telecom. So we do some enterprise stuff on the telecom side, and we had several enterprise telecom customers get encrypted, right? Their data side of the business got encrypted, hospitals and some manufacturing places that, made us super nervous too. I'm glad we weren't responsible for their IT. Nevertheless, the encryptions were happening, and it was going fast and furious, as everyone remembers. So we just said, let's protect everybody, worry about the money later, and we did it. And so we got things rolled out. We got introduced to the cyber defense matrix and through the cyber call also. And, initially, I don't know if we had any boxes checked on it, but we're working our way through it, trying to get things checked off. And that's like kind of one of the goals for the upcoming year, is to really dive into that deeper and make sure we're hitting the marks on that. So now we got a lot of good stuff in place. Now, how do we price this out? And so, Andrew didn't really know me, emails here and there. And I just emailed him. I said, I need help. I need a lawyer, to help us get a contract going and stuff like that. So he said, get a hold of Eric Tilds, who was fantastic. And so he's a lawyer now for our company. And he helped us create a contract, but he also helped us create a master service agreement, which really puts a lot of mandatory things in front of the customer. Like, you must have 2FA turned on your 365 G Suite. You must replace your machines every 5 years. You must have cloud backup and disaster recovery. We will increase your price every year at our discretion up to a certain percentage. I don't know what that is. And so we got all this stuff in place. And now we're set on the legal side, and we're not there yet on the technology side, but we're getting there. And
hey, by the way, I just want to commend you, George. No one's there. No one's ever there.
I appreciate that.
Number one. Number two, that we talked about this a lot. Don't let good be the enemy of, or great be the enemy of good. And how, what I'm curious about is, how has it impacted your culture? How has it impacted, how you approach sales conversations, and, really the mindset and, belief of the company in terms of what you're doing.
As far as that goes, like the sales approach is shifted to where, you're protected. You don't have to worry about anything. Your machines are always, your employees are gonna be happy because their machines are on a replacement cycle. They're gonna be up, up to date, this and that. Our employees are, they all believe in the two-factor. They all believe in keeping everything protected as best as possible when they're working on a customer infrastructure. I mean, the mindset has shifted more towards security than anything. I don't think we're the greatest at sales as far as that goes, but we're working on that too. But the shift has been like, keep everyone protected. We don't want to get encrypted, right? That's kind of like, maybe we went overboard on that. I don't know, but that's kind of where the mindset is a lot. And we let the customers know you're well protected, but we still always let them know there is that chance, but the footprint's been reduced greatly, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just the fact that, you guys are changing your internal culture of what's important. I think, some things that stand out is, you have that telecom side. I would use those as when you're doing sales and tell those stories, right? You don't have to disclose the who, but the why, because stories really change perspective on people.
Yeah, we do. And we definitely have on that side, and, we discovered traction, right? And we use that to run the business now too. I don't know if anyone's read that book or familiar with it, but it kind of gives you a blueprint on a lot of different things. And it's been helpful to the business just to get right people in the right seat, eliminate like the people who really aren't in the right seat. So we've taken that into, and then now we reached the point where it's time to get everyone to buy into the all-inclusive plan. So first customer we do it to says no, and we part ways, but we'll circle back to them shortly. Next customer took a few meetings, but they saw the value in it. We kind of laid out what we weren't doing and what we're going to be doing now for them, and they bought into it. I remember these guys, I finally had to tell them, like, you spend more on your copy machine than you do on IT. And that kind of set the stage for them to say yes, I think. And so I'm not going to talk numbers like overall, but that customer went from paying us $12,000 a year. Now they pay us $55,000 a year.
Wow.
With the all-inclusive plan. So
Good for you, George.
Yeah. Now we were able to repeat this strategy across all of our customers on the MSP side, except we lost 2 more. And that's okay. It's okay. It's like, don't say yes to everything mentality we have now too. Like you don't want 2FA? Well, we don't want you as a customer then. And that's our company culture, right? We're going to do best practices. And if you don't want it, then we don't really want you. And, I told you we have 2FA across everybody. We do, except for one customer. And that's getting remedied this weekend, but that's a whole nother story. But we're going to talk about that customer in a few minutes when we talk about SaaS Alerts and how Anthony helped us out big time on our first call. So now we've got everyone up on our plan, and we're always looking at ways to improve the business and improve security and things like that, right? So we're at IT Nation, and I'm in a perch session. I don't know what they call perch now, but it was a perch session. Yeah. And so they start talking about how perch is going to be doing SaaS monitoring. Maybe it can do a little bit now. Some guys started asking questions. Can it do this, this, and this? And the moderator in that session was like, no, it's on the roadmap, but no. And then someone in the crowd chimed up, but SaaS Alerts can already do that stuff. So that's when I was like, ding, ding, let's go see SaaS Alerts at the pavilion. And it was like, yeah, let's do it. And we had a few meetings. with Jim, and I think William was the other sales guy, and we signed up. And
That's awesome.
and
That's
then Anthony did our, I don't know if Anthony's on the call or not, but he did our
Yes.
first onboarding call. I don't know if he remembers it or not, but so I'm going to circle back to that one customer that doesn't have 2FA that's on G Suite, and we're looking at our alerts, and he's like, hey, this user just logged in from Germany, and it was a true login, right? Their Gmail account. I'm like, uh-oh. So, we shut the account down right away and reset the password and followed up with the customer, and no one is in Germany. So the account, I don't know if it got compromised by a bot, but it did get compromised, and SaaS Alerts caught it not too long after it happened. So we were okay, but right there, it's worth its weight in gold, if you ask me. Now, that customer that's not on 2FA is getting 2FA'd this weekend with Duo. It was just a big debacle with their end users refusing to use their personal cell phones for MFA and blah, blah, blah. So we got them all fobs, and we're moving along. And
so what's interesting about, and if maybe we should close out with this, George, because we're going to hit the SASI report, but I love what you're doing. And I think, dude, you just keep believing and working hard, right? There's no magic to this, right? But just the fact that you guys are steadfast, willing to learn, always taking new stuff in. Like, I mean, to take a customer from 12,000 to 55,000 or whatever it was dollars, that in and of itself is such a wonderful story, because you did them a service. Not only did you do your company a service, but you did them a huge service. But I'll close with this, Jim, the magic of IT Nation. Carl Bickmore was on here, about 2 months ago, talking about how, I forget the exact thing, but a very, very similar experience where they were onboarding a customer and they were in their queue and the customer got compromised and they were able to stop it because of SaaS Alerts. So
yeah,
it's awesome stuff.
And Andrew, I remember that session because it was Keith that was asking those questions about CW SIM Perch. And you and I had lunch with Keith literally right after that. Yes.
Keith Bartol, yes.
Yeah. So thank you for the assist, Keith, getting us to George. George, a couple questions from me. Mm-hmm. We've got a lot of our MSPs on this call right now, and a lot ask us when they first sign up, like, so how do other MSPs take this to market? And there's a lot of folks that take the approach, well, I'll try to sell it to some customers and we'll have it in the best category, right? The good, better, best. Yeah. And we'll give them the premium service, once they're elevated to that. What are your overall thoughts there?
I think it's bad practice. I think you need to fully protect your customers and save them from themselves, especially when it's over dollars, right? They're refusing it over dollars. So protect them no matter what. Have a good MSA. Call Eric Tills, have them build your contract and your MSA and build price increases into your contracts that if you bring on a SaaS Alerts, then when their contract's up in a year or 2 years or whatever it is, right? Ours says even like on a 3 or 5 year contract, you can increase yearly regardless based on tools. So just do it and increase the price. Everyone worries about that razor thin margin and this and that, but if an account gets compromised, or if you missed, in SharePoint, like we made a big push in the SharePoint, if you missed anonymous sharing and unlimited but unlimited time frame on that stuff, like that could be disastrous. Or what if an employee is pushing out files to somebody they shouldn't be pushing them out to? Like SaaS Alerts is going to catch all that stuff. It just it's a no-brainer. It's like,
yeah. And these are all the things that are happening, right? Because everyone's core application they're using is some SaaS productivity application. In most cases, it's 365, but if it's not 365, it's Google Workspace. So one of the things I tell MSPs, I'm glad you're taking this approach. Not everybody does. Like you don't pick and choose when you're an MSP and you onboard a customer, you're not picking and choosing which one gets AV and RMM. It's just part of your standard package. You're putting RMM and AV on there. And I think that mentally we all have to make this shift that SaaS applications are just as important to protect as the device.
Yeah, I mean, we don't let them pick their Office 365 package. You know, we want the package that has the full Defender suite in it, just in case. You know, we throw other stuff on there too. I mean, we have a whole slew of stuff we just include in our package, right? But letting them choose is just, I don't know, it's a recipe for disaster in my opinion, because something's going to get missed.
Look, at the end of the day, that's like saying going to a surge. Really, where we are, in my opinion, is going into, you know, you're an attorney, you're an IT person, and you go in, you need knee replacement, and you're going to tell the orthopedist what they're going to do. None of us are qualified, just like our clients aren't qualified. But it takes some, you know what, to change our belief in who we are. I think for years as IT professionals, relative to attorneys and CPAs and other quote unquote higher paying professions, we've kind of been here. And, you know, now that we've taken on the role of security along with IT, we just have to change our perspective on the importance and the value we provide. And the more at bats, the more wins we have, the more your belief's going to grow. And there's going to be failures, there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be people that are going to say no. So, but
yeah, it's okay if they say no. And, you know, I think for a long time we undervalued ourselves as IT professionals. You know, we're
not you and many, and I would say probably most.
I mean,
right?
We're charging $125 an hour or something like that, but the electrician that came to my house to do my panel charged me $250 for the first hour, and I'm like, I mean, being an electrician is tough work, but being in IT is tough work too. And it just made me realize, like, we're not up to speed in our pricing structure at all.
Yeah, it's going to change.
Hey,
So
George, out of curiosity, if you don't mind asking, like you talked about bundling in these applications. What's your target seat price for those clients that you're bringing on now?
Good question. Initially, we were at $150 a seat, plus the DR was a separate cost. Okay, and then the 365 was a separate cost. So we were at $150, but we're looking at bumping that. We have some customers that are at $200 a seat right now. Because their environment was a little more complex. Okay, but we're looking at standardizing at 175, I think, for the next round of customers we bring in.
If you're including those tools, that sounds like it's a very reasonable price.
Yeah, I don't think we're unreasonable at all. You know,
we got companies that are in the 350s and 400s now. So again, yeah.
And let me bring one thing back. The first customer we lost when we tried to do this, they came back a year later because they went with a large MSP that was offshore support, and they were miserable, and they came back to us. So
nice.
We got them back.
There you go. Great job. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And by the way, in terms of the price points, so everyone needs to know, obviously SaaS Alerts is MSP only. We only sell to the channel. But there are companies out there that are direct to your customer, right? They're selling to small, mid, and enterprise level customers, and they're selling essentially SaaS Alerts functionality for between $5 and $8 a user. So you guys are obviously buying it from us for very reasonable price point. But my point is, you should be charging for that level of protection and functionality, because some of these customers are buying it direct from essentially people that are coming in and trying to take that market share from you.
Yeah. And again, Jim, at the end of the day, let's close it out with this and hit some SASI report.
Yeah.
George, thanks a million. But at the end, at the end of the day, Jimmy, you mentioned something earlier. We will see a fundamental shift, I believe, in the next 12 months, where whether it's cyber insurance driving it. In other words, if we can't do it ourselves, whether cyber insurance, your customer getting cyber insurance dictates it, because think about it. You tell a cyber carrier that, yes, we have MFA on Auto 365 and they insure you at one time. We have the traveler's case still pending. I don't know if it's resolved yet, but things are going to change when it comes to monitoring, as Jim says, SaaS applications. But in terms of productivity suites, I would work on it now, because I don't want to be behind. If I'm an MSP, MSSP selling right now, I don't want to be behind the curve. That's just where I see this going. And lastly, I'll say, I mean, look at what the White House and then CISA just in the last 1.5 weeks both came out and said that it's going to have to be security by design, right? And they're going to look at not only vendors, but people providing services, right? And so just kind of take all this into where the industry is headed, and just have belief that it's the right thing to do. So awesome, George. Really, really grateful for you coming on. Congrats on the success. Keep it going.
Thanks.
All right, Jim, let's talk SASI Report. When is it coming out? Is it out? Talk to us first about that.
It's available to this group, to partners only right now. So we are launching it to the broader universe next week. Matter of fact, Tuesday, it goes out. So
Michelle, can you throw up a poll real quick for everybody? And Jim, can I tell a quick story about Right of Boom? And then I'm going to have you lead off with the kind of the executive summary, because I thought it was really interesting on IT spend. For those that were at Right of Boom, thank you for coming. For those that weren't, we were fortunate enough to be it's the first time ever that CISA Executive Director Brandon Wales, the second in charge at CISA, former director actually under Trump when Krebs was let go, who oversaw, he's overseen Colonial Pipeline, he's overseen all the exchange vulnerabilities, the Ukraine conflict, he's overseen Pulse Secure and the Kaseya compromise. And when I say oversaw, this guy is in the trenches. He's not a figurehead like Jen is. Jen's very smart, obviously incredibly talented. She's out in front. This guy's an operator. And so we're going through the interview with him, and at one point, and I have the snippet and Michelle has it, he said, one of the things that really amazed us and actually was frightening when Microsoft reported to us that 30% of Microsoft Enterprise Cloud, that's the only 30% of Microsoft Enterprise Cloud has MFA fully enabled. And I looked up at Jim, said, Jim, why did I look up at you? And we talked about this previously, so sorry if I'm being iterative, because I thought it was just awesome.
No, well, weeks earlier, when we were pulling all the data together for the SASI report, I asked you, I said, Andrew, we have some really cool data coming in from SASI report. Guess how many of our MSP customers are leveraging MFA on a percentage basis? And you said 32. And you nailed it, like on the number, on the spot. I was like shocked. I specifically said, you need to go buy a lottery ticket today. But then you shared that number, right? You were gracious enough to share that data and that number on your opening statements at Right of Boom. And it was awesome to see that, essentially CISA is quoting the same types of numbers.
Right. Well, and what's frightening, Michelle, maybe you could put the results of what's horribly frightening, and we hear this over and over, is how the enterprise is not that much different. What the things we struggle with, the enterprise struggles with. And you hear this over and over and over from Phyllis Lee, who was a 25-year veteran at NSA, who runs the security controls for CIS, et cetera. So here are the results, Jim. Looks like our group here, I'm not surprised, is leading the pack more than others.
Yes.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. But
All
you know
right,
what?
so
This
Jim-
is a security focused. This is a security focused group. So,
Right. So talk to us, Jim, about the executive summary in that IT spend, because I thought that was interesting, especially considering, we're seeing, obviously shifts in the economy,
Right.
spending and layoffs and et cetera, not to be doom and gloom. It's bullish in our area because outsourcing continues. I mean, I'm bullish even into a recession, unfortunately,
Right. Yeah.
for MSPs.
Right. Well, I'm actually going to ask Michelle to share her screen and just bring up the SASI report real quick, because I think there's probably a bunch of folks on this call right now, Andrew, that this is kind of new for them.
Okay,
Like,
sure.
All right.
We've been
I
doing.
got it.
What's
Sorry.
that?
Oh, sorry. I have a lot of things open. It's not as bad as Liran, but I just couldn't find it.
Yeah.
All right.
So what Michelle's pulling that up, just so everyone knows, this is the third year of the SASI report. And when we went into this endeavor, we quickly realized, SaaS Alerts that is, we quickly realized that we are going to have a ton of data on our hands, and data that is really useful and interesting. And it's specific to MSPs and the SMB space. We have been inundated with Forrester and Gartner reports forever, and it's great, but it really just focuses on the enterprise, right? So we wanted something that would be able to really focus on your customers, right? And the trends coming from your customers and prospects. So, Michelle, if you can just kind of scroll up a little bit, we'll you got a table of contents and, this executive summary, which I'll come back to in a second, but just so everyone knows, what we did was we aggregated and anonymized all the data on our platform from 2022. And that consists of 728 MSPs. And they bring on roughly about 7,500 MSPs. Excuse me, they bring on about 7,500 SMBs, so direct customers of theirs. And we've got users within those end customers from 1 user all the way up to 11,700 users. Now, the 11,700, that's certainly an outlier. The average is going to be right around 50 users. So again, this is just like MSP sweet spot stuff. And the user counts, right, that we looked at last year, this is including guest user accounts. Almost 1 million end user accounts, Andrew.
Yeah, it's good,
which is
good
pretty cool.
efficacy.
Yeah, and almost 1 billion total events logged.
But what it speaks to, by the way, Jim, is the maturity of the partners you have. Because if you have 728 MSP partners, the bell curve's 100 customers.
Yep.
So that's a very healthy number.
Yeah, we do. We do have 12 private equity-backed MSPs that are pretty large and that are going after some mid-market customers, right? So that's where you're going to find some of these, 1,000 to 2,000 person organizations. So that's
very cool.
So I just want to give everyone kind of a taste of what it is, and if you want to scroll back up, Michelle, to the executive summary. We wanted to take an approach where we are giving you not just our data in the executive summary, but looking at some other reputable resources, right? And giving you some information from other reports, right? Not just ours. but in summarizing it and then drilling in on our own data, within the report itself. So I know, Andrew, you're talking about the spending piece of it. So what surprised you? I've, looked at this now a million times over the last month. You got a draft of it last week, but I guess what surprised you about the spending piece of it?
Well, I mean, just the good news is that, again, you're seeing close to, I think, what is it, 15 to 20% continued increase in spend, give or take. So,
Yeah.
so if you think about that, what surprised me, or what I think, again, is bullish for MSPs is, if you're thinking there, wow, I should only increase my prices by whatever, 3% this year. People are spending money. And so so I just would like people to have that perspective going in as they think about, what their all in seat price is, when they look at their cost of goods sold, when they look at their hard COGS versus their service. Gary Harlem knows all these metrics really well. If you're been schooled in, some of these metrics with Gary for years, but, looking at your tickets per month per endpoint, all those things go into account. And so I implore all of you to increase your prices. If you're obviously doing the right things, you have every right to do that because people are spending it.
Yeah. And I'll give you just a quick story. So we work with an MSP that had, beginning of the year, increased their total all-in seat price by 9%. And then they came on with us after they did that. And they said, we believe this is certainly more value. We want to charge for it, but we just increased our price. And they were in a quandary whether or not they should just throw it in for that or if they should charge. So in the end, what they did was they decided they were going to actually charge an incremental fee for SaaS security monitoring. And they went out at $3 a user. And there was a lot of angst within the organization about whether or not they should do that. And they did it, and they got almost 100% adoption on it. So they made the 9%, plus a couple months later, they were able to go out and get an extra $3 a user based on adding SaaS alerts. Now, I say that not to pump up SaaS alerts, but more to emphasize our own thought patterns and our own paradigms about how we think about price. And we're the ones holding ourselves back in many cases.
100%.
Right?
100%.
From maximizing, we don't truly believe sometimes the value that we're delivering to our customers, and we're not charging enough for it. And so it's self-inflicted from a paradigm perspective and how we approach price.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
And the numbers certainly, from what we're seeing, when people go out and charge more, they're getting it. So I would encourage everybody, and sometimes I'm on calls, I've said this before, I'll keep saying it, with prospects, MSP prospects, and they're like, oh, you know what? It's a very reasonable price that you guys are charging. We're just going to include it. And my response is absolutely not. Do not do that. Do not just include it. Like, you're selling yourself short. You're selling your organization short. Like, of course, would I like you to just, you've got 1,000 users and put it all 1,000 users and just absorb it? That helps us. Yeah, short term it might help us, but long term, if you're looking at things to cut next year and you're not making any money off of it, we're probably going to be in the line item to cut. So I encourage everyone to charge for everything that you do and the value that you provide. So yeah. I'll get off my soapbox now. But
no, it's good stuff. I know Jim, where you got, we're at 5 up, but I think what would be cool is maybe just what we could hit on a few high points, but maybe, what I see between this and, earlier on, I showed the CrowdStrike report. What I hope is that you take things like this and, for example, do lunch and learns or webinars, build some thought leadership in your community, right? About, you know, what the, emerging threats are, right? And, maybe you do something specific to a certain vertical. Maybe you do something specific to a certain size organization, but get creative and lead, right? Build insights and lead, because again, that's things like this. Again, remember how people buy today. But Jim, maybe we get JB on here, John Barrows.
Yeah.
The latest research is I think it's 54% of people want a sales-free experience,
Mhm.
yet of those, they have a higher regret when they purchase something when not engaging sales. So there's a correlation that sales still has value.
Right.
And the value salespeople still bring, if they're good, is changing mindset, bringing things that people didn't know before, right? And this isn't something people can just go Google and go, and it's not, people aren't searching for, I wonder what the latest threats are to my Office 365 account. Your customers aren't doing that.
Right. Right. So Andrew, this is a great setup because weeks ago, you had put homework out there talking about the challenger sale and people coming up with their own commercial insights, right? And unfortunately, not many people actually did their homework, but this actually does your homework for you.
Yeah, you have
SASI
insights in there, right, Jim?
The SASI report is the homework that we've done for you. So Michelle, if you actually go to the first major finding in terms of where attacks are coming from, right here. So these are where we saw most of the attacks originating from, these countries last year. So China is number one, Vietnam, India, Brazil, and South Korea.
Interesting. Russia's not on there?
No, Russia's
Well,
not
think about
on there.
why though, Gar? Why?
They spoofed their addresses probably.
What?
No.
They probably
No.
spoof all their addresses.
You
They're a little
think about
busy.
what the Ukraine and Russia are doing right now. What are their threat actors focused on?
Yeah, good point.
Makes total
Right.
sense, actually, the way the geographical threat model looks. They're
Yeah.
focused on each other.
Right.
So and we point that out in that paragraph, right? So you can see, we suspect that the decline in attempts from that region has to do with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So
100%, Dan. Let me tell you, they are going to, and there's no question. I mean, I think overarchingly, we've seen better efficacy, better resilience from our MSPs, right? Doing better jobs protecting. We haven't seen as many buffalo jumps to RMMs and things like that. But rest assured, as Ben said, when that conflict's over, I think we're going to see a flurry of activity we haven't seen before.
right. And by the way, last year, within a couple of weeks of the Ukraine war going on, we saw actual collusion between Russia and China against U.S. small businesses. Once the war intensified and Russia realized that they were actually in a war and they just weren't going to roll over Ukraine, then essentially they diverted all of their technical talent, going after them. But initially, we saw a distinct collusion between China and Russia going after small businesses in this country at the same time.
Yeah.
So this is one of the insights. Michelle will go one more the next page. So this is where they're coming from, but these are where people are getting in from. So the country that's getting in the most isn't China. They're just attacking us the most. India actually gets in the most. Vietnam second most, China, and then Brazil, and then the Philippines actually. So these are where attacks are most successful from. But these are the types of insights that we're now providing you and arming you with to take to your customers. And like Andrew said, you can take this in a one-on-one sales call. You can create lunch and learns. You can do webinars with folks. We're willing to help you. So, ultimately, Tim's asking if this can be white labeled. This is one thing that we do not allow to be white labeled because it's distinctly our intellectual property coming from our platform. You can obviously white label all the reports on an individual basis coming from SaaS Alerts, but this one report that's aggregated is one that we can't actually allow people to white label. But you should be leveraging it and saying, hey, this is one of the vendors that we use, and this is the report they provide. And guess what? You can't buy this product without us because we only sell through MSPs. So,
like I said, Jim, in close, I know we're at the top of the hour and be respectful of everybody, but like, I encourage you all to download the latest CrowdStrike report and look at, because I think you'll be proud that you're using a solution and that you guys can also correlate that data together. It's very easy to read report 2 with CrowdStrike and, again, do some thought leadership around what is going on in terms of, again, it boils down to credentials, reuse of vulnerabilities, and misconfiguration. Right. And when you put credentials in there, think phishing, right? Social engineering, all those fun things. But Chip, I mean, if you take those 3 pieces, I again, I'm not saying there aren't, 0 days and nation state actors getting in other ways. But if you focus on those 3 areas, Chip, you got a pretty strong defense strategy. Fair?
Definitely agree. I mean, that's from day one in 2018 when we conceived of this product, or 2019. Identity access management, policy and configuration, and data.
Sorry.
And the data flow are the meta areas that we focus on. Because when you tie all them together, you can not only adequately prevent compromises and attacks, but when they occur, that's what, looking at those 3 areas as a whole, the metadata around them, that's how you track down exactly what happened, who the bad actors were, and most importantly, what you lost.
Right. So I know we're well over at this point, Andrew. We smashed our record, by the way, today. So thank you all for participating in growing this audience. We were up to 58 today. Our previous record was 47. So we're growing this community, Andrew.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome, Jim. And I think we spend some time on the SASI report and see how we can help everybody next week build some thought leadership and how they can use it. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, everybody. Till next week, wishing you all a great one. Take care.
Good week.
Thanks, everybody. Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.